It's time for Talking Pictures Trivia. A quick friendly reminder, there's a very specific way to fold the American flag.
Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of geographically challenged friends explore movies through trivia as an excuse to keep their friendships alive. I'm one of these friends and today's host, Nick, and with me is...
Tom.
And KJ.
Great to have you back as always. Additionally, joining us as a guest for this episode is...
Patrick Kottner.
Thanks for joining us today, Patrick. Patrick is the producer of the George Lucas talk show where retired filmmaker George Lucas, played by Connor Ratliff, interviews real-life celebrities and raises money for charity. Be sure to check it out. Patrick conveniently likes movies. For those joining us for the first time, we start off each episode with a movie quiz, as these pivotal questions will determine who earns today's trivia crown. Then, once the fierce competition is over, we follow it up with our famous movie rant where anything goes. KJ, tell us about today's movie.
Today we are going back to 1971. The Etch-a-Sketch is released, 18-year-olds can now vote, and Disney World in Florida opens. During all this, George Lucas releases his first feature film, THX 1138. Following THX 1138, George Lucas goes on to make American Graffiti, a few Star Wars movies, and was the executive producer on a Marvel movie called Howard the Duck. THX 1138 was released in theaters alongside Airport, The Aristocrats, and a Woodstock documentary. Nick will be quizzing us today. Nick, what is THX 1138 all about?
A quick note, I believe most, if not all of us, watched the director's cut of this film, so just a general FYI should there be any discrepancies from your viewing experience. I saw the original years ago, and there were many moments, specifically of the CGI variety, that I didn't recall from the past viewing. THX 1138 and LUH 3417 are debatably compatible roommates until things begin to change as La slowly weans THX off the state-mandated sedatives. It appears that the two are much more compatible than previously portrayed, much to the dismay of the state. This lack of conformity will not stand, and both are severely punished. We follow THX as he attempts to track down La and escape the confines of the only life he's ever known. Tom, if you only had one word to describe THX 1138, what would it be?
Total. KJ, what would be your word?
Sterile. Patrick? I can come up with another word if you want.
Nope, sterile was a great word, so it just shows how good your word was. I'm going to say white because it's a very white movie.
And my word would be sedation.
It's time for question 1.
What were the charges brought against THX 1138 by the state? And I'm not looking for the codes, okay? There was a few specific charges brought against him.
I'm going to lock in.
I'm going to lock in.
Locked in?
All right. KJ, you sounded really confident there. Let's start it up.
So I have two. I'll say stopping the medication. I don't know if what they called the doggy downers that it seemed like everybody was taking. And excessive happiness, to borrow from Patch Adams. I don't remember exactly what they said, but I have those two.
Yeah, that's what I think of when I think of that guy. He was just too damn happy.
Okay, Tom.
I had avoiding the medication, not taking his medication, and also erotic perversions, aka heterosexual sex.
Okay, Patrick, what do you have?
See, I was just going a little bit simpler. I had love, just love. And then the only other word I could think of, which I know is not related to this, but was insurrection. It just felt like something they would talk about in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the points are going to go to everyone because I feel like each one of you got one. And I'm going to read off what the actual... Tom, yours is close, though. Tom got two. Tom actually did get two. Yeah. So I got to give the points to Tom. The erotic behavior was technically close to one of them. So Tom will get the first point on this episode. The 4 charges that were brought up were drug evasion, which I would say everybody kind of got something like that. Malicious sexual perversion, as Tom mentioned.
It's
The
pretty
other one was
malicious.
unconditional response and just transgression. Those are the other ones.
Transgression sounds a lot like insurrection.
Or it's
Sounds a lot like
insurrection,
whatever. Well, I think I could be convinced there. I think Patrick's got a point too. Sorry, KJ.
All right.
No problem.
I didn't see excessive. Excuse me, I didn't see excessive happiness on that list. So, okay.
Well, KJ said that, right? Didn't you say being happy?
No, he did, but that's not one of
excessive happiness. He had to say excessive.
So the points are going to go to Tom and Patrick. And the reason I brought this one up is really just to bring us into discussing the main and supporting characters of this one. There really are only a few characters we're introduced to. The majority of the story is dealing with THX 1138 and his companion La, as she's referred to, LUH 3417. There are also some other side characters. So I just thought I'd like to open it up to anyone's opinions on any of the main characters.
Well, what's interesting about them is they're with THX is mostly a blank. He's sort of a blank slate that we could, cast ourselves on. It seems like La and Sen, played by Donald Pleasant, is Sen, who's the most interesting person there, are somehow engaged in like an active insurrection, especially La. She's the one who manipulates the drugs, right? She makes sure he's not taking them, from what I can remember, which I have to say, I watched this movie twice this week. The first viewing, I don't remember her doing that. So that's
she switches the pills. Yeah,
that's how damn blank this movie is. But so she seems to have a clear goal, which is like to get him out of this system. Sen does as well, but Sen seems to be much more of a like a kind of head in the air philosopher type. I don't think he's as kind of together as Lux is. And when he's in that kind of weird prison, that seems to be the easiest prison to get out of. You just leave whenever you want.
Just keep walking.
Just keep walking, and eventually, it's like leaving the Superdome. You just walk in a direction until you hit an exit. When he's in there, there's this kind of like odd revolutionary madman energy going on. It kind of reminded me of, if anybody's seen the movie or the play Marat Sade, where all of it takes place during the French or after the French Revolution, and it's a bunch of madmen who are in this asylum enacting scenes from the French Revolution, and eventually inspires them to revolt. That's what it reminded me. It reminded me of madmen pretending revolution.
It's interesting you should bring up some of these other characters. And you mentioned the word philosopher. I was actually reading a little bit about this. And THX actually stands for sex, and his companion La stands for love. Sen was actually, we might call him a villain in this movie, standard for sin. So there was some kind of play with that.
What is, I don't get that. I read the same thing.
Yeah.
How is Sen sin? What is his, what are we supposed to not like him? He eventually kind of just chickens out, right? Or he just doesn't have the energy to follow through, right? And what ends up being interesting about THX, it's maybe the only interesting thing other than Robert Duvall, who's by himself interesting, is that he actually follows through with the revolution. Not revolution, excuse me, the escape. Right, Sen just sort of goes back into the fold, and he wants to go back into the fold. He tells, the Han Menling Christ that he, wants to do that. So what is that? What does the sex, love, sin thing do for us? I don't read that in the movie.
The only thing I can say is he takes the role of the snake in the Garden of Eden. He's the one whispering all these things, but he's actually too sheepish to do anything on his own. He needs someone else to take the bait. And I think that's the only connection I could make with THX. But you're right. I read that too, and I was hoping maybe some of us could explore, but it seems everyone else is kind of just as confused as I am with it.
This movie, whenever I watch it, it does feel like it's obviously George's first movie. George, we're on a first name basis. It's George's first movie.
It's understand. You
and,
produce, yeah.
And, but it definitely feels still like the college short that he made, which I watched last week. I don't know if it was for the first time. I mentioned this before recording. Every time I watch this movie, it feels like it's the first time I've watched this movie because I'm like, I don't remember any of this beyond the general broad strokes. But it feels like he's still in college being like, yeah, man, this is going to mean all this cool stuff and they're not going to be able to pick up on it because it's too deep for everybody. And I feel like that's exactly what we're running into right now, where like if you were in George's head and he was like, well, this is what this means, you're like, okay, I guess so. Yeah, sure. Yeah, you did it. Yeah.
He took it even a step further, Patrick. So I was reading about like some of the characters that were in that jail with him were SRT, NCH, and PTO, which stand for Sartre, Nietzsche, and Plato. So like he's like, yeah, I'm just gonna put these in there, and people aren't gonna get it. But
George,
it's cool.
come on, George, come on.
Yeah.
Which one is Nietzsche? Is it the older guy?
I actually don't know which one is which.
Okay, yeah. I was getting an insane Nietzsche vibe from him, but yeah, that sounds like a bunch of crap. Honestly, I know we're not supposed to insult the movie or something, but let's insult the movie.
I do guess that when I think about this movie as a whole, I feel like I can sum up a lot of it as, "Come on, George, what are we doing?" Like that sort of. And I do. I want to be clear. I do like parts of this movie a lot. I think the design is cool, and I even maybe this is popping ahead, and I'm sorry about that, but I like a lot of the changes that he made for the re-release. I think it like helps fill out the world a little bit more, because if you watch the other one, like you can clearly tell it's like a very small budget and it's being shot in like 3 different rooms and that's like it. Whereas on this, like you know, he extends the hallways and he fills in like traffic and stuff, and it makes it feel like it's a little bit more booming and, you know, alive. So that does not get a come on, George, from me. That gets a good job, George.
And you know what it was too? When I
Job,
watched
George.
the original back in the day and then I watched this, I'm like, this almost seems like a different movie. I don't remember all of this stuff going on. So it was even harder because there was such a gap between the 2 viewings.
The Cgi Scorpion I could have done without.
What about the
Scorpion?
monkey creatures?
I don't remember a scorpion.
It's a
When was
CGI
this?
Scorpion when Donald Pleasant is wandering around aimlessly until
Oh my
children
gosh.
help him out for somehow. He like looks down and there's like a CGI Scorpion.
I saw it.
Thing.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.
You know,
Critical
trust
to
you
the
guys.
movie.
it looks like I could have done it on my Mac. Yeah.
I mean, the monkeys are a big thing. The monkeys are a whole other. That's a whole conversation.
That's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the original. I think it's kind of hard to find. I don't know that it came out on DVD or anything. It's
I will say this: if you want to find it, you can find it, because I did find it.
Anything can be found.
but if it's more similar to the short where it relies more on only being in 3 rooms, I think I would have enjoyed it more because of this pseudo philosophy, or the come on Georges might have felt better in an obvious low budget movie instead of a kind of corny CG situation.
For some reason, this has been the year of Lucas for me. We actually did a shorts episode that included Electronic Labyrinth before this episode. And then even early on, we've explored a lot of his material, American Graffiti, this year. I was like, okay, well, why don't I just keep the trend going? So let's go all the way back. So that's how we ended up here.
Now, since we're talking about American Graffiti really quickly, have you guys seen more American Graffiti?
No, we did not cover that one.
On my list,
guys,
I'd love to watch that.
It is on HBO Max, and I do
Nice.
highly recommend watching it. I wouldn't say that it's good, but I would say that it's fascinating. It's just like an interesting piece of pop culture that does not exist. Like, no one ever talks about more American Graffiti, but it's fascinating.
You just need to watch.
I would like to just leave it in your heads just so you have also seen it.
Nice.
It's time for question 2.
What is the control technique used by the powers that be to incapacitate a citizen?
Yeah, I know. I like. Oh, I can hear it in my head, and also not hear it in my head.
Locked in?
I'll lock in too.
I'm going to say that I'm never going to lock in, so I might as well just say that I'm locked in, because I do not have a good answer for this.
Patrick, since you're so confident, start us out.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh no. The control technique, it's control, but they take all of the vowels out of it. It's just CRTL. That's what it is.
Control delete,
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Tom.
I think it's Mind Stop.
KJ?
The control technique, they use those really long sticks with the electricity at the end to control whoever they needed to knock down. That's how they
Nobody
control
got the
people with
points.
that brute force.
Okay. I'm gonna give this is maybe unprecedented. I'm gonna give Tom half a point.
All right.
The device or program or whatever it was called Mind Lock. When it
Mind
almost looked
Lock.
like they
Too
induced
close.
a seizure. Like he's at the terminal and his eyes start flipping upwards. So it was called a mind lock. The reason I brought this one up, I just wanted to talk about the governmental / like law enforcement structure of this society. And I thought that was a very unique microcosm of how it's presented because they were so bureaucratic that one area was following one policy and the other area was following a different one. And even when they almost like had a nuclear explosion or radioactive event, then they start trying to cover each other, saying, "Oh yeah, we take no control for that decision for the mind lock."
I do want to point out I love the designs of the guards in this movie, and I know that that's not talking about the meaning behind it, but I do think it's so striking. The poles that they're holding, the masks, like everything about it is like instantly iconic. I was at Comic-Con a few years ago and I saw a guy dressed up as the guard walking through, and I was
Oh,
like,
that's cool.
I mean, that's the coolest costume I'm gonna see today. But this movie is it's so sterile and it's so cold, and I'm very glad that we are not there as a society currently, because it feels like there's no fun to be had and everyone would be miserable, and it's just like I'm very happy that that is not the way the world progressed. At least to me. Maybe it is for other people, but
Yeah, I think one of the things the movie does a great job is distancing the audience from the movie,
Mhm.
right? That's one of the reasons we're having such trouble remembering it. And part of the way they do that is everybody in the movie is also distanced from each other, or these different groups, right? They're trying not to take responsibility. They are distancing themselves from what is actually happening by trying to put the blame on somebody else or only talking over the weird microphones, right? There's very little dialogue in the same room as two people, right? It's all usually similar to the short. It's all the intercom, and so I think that distance is part of what you're talking about, Nick. How they're trying to not take the blame.
Taking it to another level, physical distance. No one is really close to each other or intimate except when they get off their meds. That was the crime. So it's very interesting how, and even in my introduction, I said they were roommates because Sen wanted to change to be his roommate. There was nothing of a sexual orientation there or a relationship. They just happen to be compatible. So it's very interesting how they take that distance effect even to another level.
Yeah, I mean, you usually see that in dystopian stuff, right? It's usually distance, and it's how the distance is happening. So you have, my kind of reading of like dystopian stuff is generally it's either um it's either caused by the state kind of overacting, or it's caused by a complete lack of state, right? So it's either you have the 1984 model, the totalitarian model, or you have the Walking Dead. Both of these are dystopian. One is it's like a Hobbesian complete lack of order, and all these little tribes form and they can't really work together, so they end up just fighting each other. Also the external threat as well. Or you have this thing where it's either it's 1984 or Brave New World, where you have a totalitarian government that's either uh, just kind of the boot in the face, or inundating you with so much pleasure that you don't think anymore. You don't really have kind of independent action. And this movie seems to be more the 1984 model, right? It's going to control you, it's going to keep you at a distance. I mean, 1984 also has the like illegal sex. Like the main character has some hot illegal sex in that, just as in this movie. I don't know if I'd call it hot. It certainly was illegal. and that seems to be the kind of model that's going on here. It's like totalitarian, and also it's about kind of crushing the spirit as opposed to like flooding it with so much pleasure that it ceases to exist on its own.
Well said.
I was gonna say I agree. That sounds good. I mean, on a more like literal version of the distance between people, I feel like one of the things in this movie that it's so jarring when they end up in the hallways that are filled with people. Because for most of the movie you see everyone and it's like a sparsely populated room. There's like 3 people or 4 people, all very separate, very far away from each other, and then they go out into the hallway and it's like bustling and you just see like the tops of heads and stuff, and it's very jarring and surprising and not something you'd expect. And again, that is something that he did expand on the DVD, is like adding more people into the back of the room just to make it feel bigger and busier and things like that. But just seeing everyone together in one place, it brings another level to what you're watching, because you're like, oh, there are a lot of people here, even if we're not seeing them all necessarily together.
Yeah, they're like cogs in a machine. And when you take the cogs out of the machine and just put them there, it's weird, right? It's weird because they kind of need each other to work, but they're also cogs, so they're interchangeable. They're just interchangeable white gowned people, and so when you see like a bunch of them together, it's shocking because you haven't, but it's also at the same time impersonalizing, if that's a word, people. They don't have personalities anymore because they're just meshed together.
After round 1, Tom is in the lead with 1.5 points. Patrick has 1, and KJ is still with us. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break.
Hi, Tom here again, and I have a message here from Mike and our good friends down at Mike's Gasoline and Repair. So, according to this message, OPEC has definitely announced that gasoline is now drinkable. Yum! Super good! Scientists and everything have confirmed this. They sure have. If you're doing some yard work on a hot day, boy, will an ice-coated mug filled with pure gasoline hit the spot. So come on down to Mike's Gasoline and buy some of Mike's moderately sized sausage sandwiches he makes out back and wash them down with a cool glass of gasoline. Now in leaded and unleaded flavors. Glass sold separately.
And we're back. Patrick, we're at the critical point of our episode where we ask the guests a key question. If you could watch this movie with anyone, dead or alive, who would it be?
Now, is George Lucas the boring answer? I think the answer is George, just because I would, obviously, I feel like I would just be talking over the movie with him more than sitting down and physically watching it with him. But just to hear him explain some of those things that we were talking about, where it's like, okay, now what's going on here? What's the deal with this? And then just hearing his train of thought would be fascinating. That or, George Washington, just because watching a movie with him, I think, would be interesting because he wouldn't know what was going on.
His mind would
be blown, and that would be fun.
It would be fun to blow George Washington's mind.
If you know what, it's interesting, even with George Lucas, if you're worried about being the boring answer, the one thing I would want to ask him is, what are his physical properties of a hologram in his universe? Because that character kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
He's a hologram, but he can interact with the real world. I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was an actual hologram. I thought it was like his role, like his position.
Really? I think he was supposed to not be real. What do you guys think?
Doesn't he say at one point that he's a hologram?
He literally says, "I am a hologram."
Yeah, I thought that meant like his job, because he's a hologram actor, right? Like, be like saying I'm an actor. That's the impression I got. He like knocks people down.
Yeah, but don't forget, when they got the tags in the ear, he made no movement. Like, he didn't make any kind of response. I don't know why he's eating things. It's almost like he's exploring something for the first time. I literally thought he was not a real person.
But he, okay. I mean, he has substance, right?
Yeah, that's why
Unless
I'm
he's like,
saying I want to
yeah.
ask George Lucas, what's his
Like, what
deal
the
with
hell's going on?
holograms?
I wonder if George, you know how he's never done with a movie. The whole time you're like, oh, I have a question about this. He's like, well, hang on. I want to tell you what I really want to do here. This is what I'm going to do on the next version of this. You know, he'd be going through. You're like,
Great.
All right, George. Okay. Yep.
When technology catches up, right?
Yeah. Right.
I imagine he like breaks into Disney studios all the time and just updates things
Just
constantly.
let me have it. I mean, I constantly say that the funniest thing that George Lucas has ever done is adding McClunky, because the fact that they made that cut in 2012 and it was like the last thing that he locked before he like passed over all the negatives to Disney, and then just like sat on that time bomb for like 8 years, just being like, listen, baby, I know it's coming someday. I know people are going to find out about this. I think it's so funny just that he knew it was out there and he was just waiting to hear what people said about it like almost a decade.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, he put that in there and waited. What?
Yeah.
Was it 9 years? 8 years?
It was 2012 to 2019. So like 7
okay.
years. Yeah.
What is this? I don't think I'm aware. What
Do you not know about McClunky?
Oh,
I
you
don't
gotta
think
know
I've heard of
about
McClunky. What's McClunky?
Oh my God, KJ, I'm so
Where have you
excited to be
been?
the person to tell you this. KJ, when Disney Plus went live, people were like, whoa, this is so cool. There's a new version of A New Hope on Disney Plus. It's in 4K. This is really cool. We finally get to see the movie in 4K. People start watching it, and by like 10 a.m. Eastern time, like it had just launched, 10 a.m. Eastern time, people are like, this is a new version. Like, they have changed stuff in this version too. There are brand new things in here. And in the Han and Greedo scene in the cantina, you know, which George has been fiddling with for decades at this point.
Yeah.
Who shot first? It, you know, boring. It's all boring to me. I don't care who shot first. Like, just whatever. It doesn't matter. But right now, right before Han shoots Greedo, they cut to a close-up of Greedo, and he goes, McClunky. And then Han shoots Greedo, and that's it. That is the only change in the whole thing. It's just this new one word. And people are like, what does that mean? What is this? And they found out that like it was the 4K restoration that they did in 2012. They were going to re-release them. And then at the last second, George was like, oh no, I'm going to sell this to Disney. So they canceled all the re-releases. And that was like some last little guy that he wanted to put in
And that's
there.
exactly what he would do. Is you're watching, he'd be like, "Oh, can you rewind that for a second? Oh,
Yeah.
You know what I'm gonna add
Yeah.
right there? McClunky, like whatever it is, he's just gonna put these things.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, I always wanted to have this in the movie, and now I
Now
can
I-
finally.
That's what
now
was
the
missing.
technology finally exists.
Nobody could say McClunky. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was impossible in the 70s.
It's time for question 3.
What is the full name of their deity?
Locked in.
Locked in. I think Tom said it earlier, but I have a bad feeling about this one.
Well, KJ, let's hear it.
I wrote down Jesus Om, but he looked like Jesus, didn't he?
It's
Or was that one of
from
the
a
other saints?
picture of Jesus. It's
Oh, it is, right? Yeah.
Hans Memling portrait from the 15th century.
1478 to be exact. German painter Hans
Oh.
Memling. Tom, you are on target here.
I know my Hans Memling.
Yeah, Christ giving his blessing. Patrick.
Now I think it's OMM, and then 4 zeros. I want to say. I might be wrong on that number, but I think it's 4 zeros.
Okay. Tom, what's your answer?
I have 4 zeros or 0000.
Okay. I'm going to give everyone the points there. KJ said Jesus Om, which I think is OMM. So we're going to, but it was OMM 0000.
Good job, guys.
This was a very fascinating thing to me, the concept of religion in this dystopian society. I know when THX goes to the confessional, there's some dialogue, and mostly is the OMM yesing him to death, really. But there were 3 specific lines that I thought were intriguing, and I wanted to expand upon that with you guys today. The first one was, "You are a true believer, blessings of the state. blessings of the masses. Thou art a subject of the divine, created in the image of man by the masses for the masses. The next one response at the end was, let us be thankful we have an occupation to fill, work hard, increase production, prevent accidents, and be happy. The last one that really jumped out at me was, let us be thankful we have commerce. Buy more now, buy more and be happy.
I like prevent accidents. I think that's really funny. I think that's such a funny rule to have.
It's good advice.
I guess. Yeah.
There's like, if you read the Bible, there's a lot of confusion in there. Like some of the rules where you don't like pick up animals on Saturday and whatnot seem a little arbitrary. Prevent accidents? I could get on board with that.
It's also very broad. It's very open to interpretation, you know, and it's not going to be, I don't think people will be mad about it in 2,000 years. You know what I mean? It's not like when we're, you know, electing a president in 2,000 years, people will be like, haven't you read the Bible? They say prevent accidents. Don't you know what that means?
You are very clumsy.
Do they say buy more now? Are you buying it yet?
Yeah. So like, you know, Om, do you know what that means? Where that comes from? Om is a word from Hindu religion, and it refers to both Brahman, the god of everything in the universe, and you know, it's sort of like a god and also the total of the universe. It also refers to Atman, which is the soul or the inner like the inner god, so to speak. At the end of like Hindu prayers, they usually say like Om Santi 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 Om, and it's kind of a calling out to you know, the sort of total divinity of everything. And the image of Christ too, it seems to be like they're collapsing this Hindu mythology into a Christian figure, but while at the same time bureaucratizing it with zeros, you know, like this is Om edition O. And what's it's kind of the advice you get from Om is really weird, like what you're quoting, Nick. It's like you're one of the masses. Blessed are the masses. Blessed are you as one of the masses, which is this very like communistic kind of way of looking at things. Like you're one of the masses, you're not an individual. But then it ends on this sort of like neoliberal buy more, consume and be happy. And those things don't work together. You know, like they're typically, I mean, I guess they could work together. You could be like one of the masses buying things, but it seems to be like he's drawing from like kind of like Marxist and neo-Marxist language, but also from like neoliberal language, and just jamming them together under the heading of a Hindu concept. You know, I think it's just things George Lucas doesn't like, you know, wrapped up in religion.
That's something else Patrick could ask him when they're watching the movie together, you know?
Yeah.
That's very true. Yeah, I mean, I've got a list at this point, you know?
Yeah.
I want to hear what he meant by prevent accidents. Tell me more about that, George. What spurred that rule? What is the thing that made them?
Well, we did see that like radioactive explosion that occurred, and they're like, okay, your wing now has this many less people, so keep up a good job.
Yeah, I love that scene where it's like, you have only lost 195 people compared to 245 in the other factory. Well done. You prevented more accidents. And also another thing too is like, what are they consuming? Right? Like they have this idea, there's this like, I consume more, buy and be happy. And you see these people just kind of go home and go to work, and you know, there's no like shopping mall, right? Like what are they gonna buy? You see him get money at one point, right? He gets that like polygon that or something. I think that's money because he puts it in his quote unquote bank account, I guess, which just looks like the ice thing in the freezer when you want to get water. But other than that, like there's no, what are they gonna consume?
They do make mention of credits. That's the only thing I know throughout the film. Things do cost things, and maybe those pills aren't cheap.
What about the hologram of the naked person?
That's right.
You know, could have been that.
That could be it. Yeah, it's pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah, because their apartments are empty. There's no There's
There's
not
no-
even Battling Burrow's boxing gloves hanging there. Which,
Very
Yeah.
sparse.
you know, there's nothing there. And, like when he goes to the prison, how different is that from his apartment? I mean,
I think that might have been
It's-
better. They had a nice cushion on top of those,
Yeah, there was more space. You had space for activities. Yeah, there's nothing commercial going on. It just sort of doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't seem like the kind of consumerist nightmare that we're supposed to, I think, get out of the religious figure.
There is a city
Yeah.
or other areas that maybe we aren't explored to. Maybe this is specific roles or occupations within this society. And there were vehicles. So I don't know if those are all government provided or if there is individual property, because that whole chase, I don't know. There's a lot to be left to the imagination. And again, maybe George could incite us.
Yeah, it seems ideologically all over the place. You know what I'm saying?
maybe he's adding that in the next version, the consumables.
Well, again, just like we said, when did he make this in his career? These were based on college thoughts that it got
Yeah.
expanded into a larger feature film. So it is kind of understandable.
The other things I like too is when he's first praying to Om, it cuts to like the wires where you realize this is just kind of algorithmically responding, and there's like a gecko or something in there. There's like a little lizard climbing over the wire. So the only living thing that has any contact with him or any kind of whatever, like aware thing that has any contact with him when he's praying to this divinity that's supposed to be whatever helping him out is like a lizard that got lost, or an amphibian that got lost. It was a nice little touch.
A scorpion. It could have been a
It
scorpion.
could have been a scorpion. It
Later,
could have been a
later.
Cgi Scorpion.
Or a monkey creature. Monkey creatures also. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah.
8K version.
He actually made that like 12 years ago. You just got to wait for the Disney Plus release. And
Do you guys know that there's a special edition of American Graffiti too?
Is there?
no, I did not.
Yeah.
What
What's-
is the
what
special
is it?
edition of American Graffiti?
There is one shot that is different that he changed.
What is that?
I think it was for the DVD release. It's the opening shot of Mel's Drive-In,
Mhm.
and he changed the sky behind it. And he changed it in like 2007 or something like that. It was just like, this was the thing that's been bothering him for like 30 years is like, oh man, this sky is not colorful enough.
Day to night or something?
No, I think it's just like a plain sky, and then he like makes it like a pink with like clouds, like a just a nicer sunset.
See, I thought it was something day to night because there were some times there where I thought there was like there was lacking continuity between what time it was, especially in that
Sure.
beginning when everyone apparently can hear the music at the same time, whether they're in the bathroom or they're outside or they're cooking. The same soundtrack is just permeating everywhere around that vicinity.
I will say, I am looking at it now. The original one is just a white sky, and you can like see the building behind it. And then when he changed it, he like takes out the building and makes it like a cloud sky.
That's what I thought was missing in the
that's-
first one. So yeah.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah.
but where are the clouds?
I wonder if you were watching with George, he would just be irrationally angry the whole time because of all the things he sees that he wants to change. But
I want to change this.
It's
he's
like,
muttering under his breath the whole time.
especially with Star Wars.
Yeah, does anybody else change their movies as much as he does?
I
No.
don't think so.
Like,
The answer is no.
I don't think anybody. I think everybody just leaves it alone.
The only other, like, you get director's cuts, but then it's not the fact that like Ridley Scott's director's cut
Mhm.
for Alien is not the only version of Alien you can see now. Like, they put both of them on there, and like Spielberg changed E.T. that little bit. You know, he took out the guns and added the walkie-talkies at the behest of George. And then a few years later, he was like, "No, why did I do that? Never mind." And then he changed it back. Like, it's a fascinating compulsion, I guess is the right word.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I like it's like an older thing where you would just change something because it was
Yeah.
not ever considered finished, and then we think of movies as like,
Yeah.
it's in the can, it's finished, it's done. And even with like Blade Runner has whatever 8 or 9 different versions
With different
but it's just
endings
sort of-
too.
Mhm.
Like
yeah, with different endings, but it's sort of, like,
fundamentally different.
Yeah, it's what they
Yeah.
made, right? Like that's what the movie they made, and they kind of recut what they had.
Yeah.
Going back and like digitally changing the sky for whatever damn reason, or
Yeah.
saying McClunky is
Yeah.
pretty.
But I mean,
unique.
also with those Blade Runner cuts, they're all available on that Blu-ray.
Mhm.
Like, you can get them all together. It's not like they just stopped putting out the old ones. Like that's kind of the selling point is, hey, guess what? There's 17 different cuts of Blade Runner on these.
Yeah.
Don't you want to buy
See,
it?
I don't mind.
Buy more.
I don't mind a director's cut a lot of times because the studio forced them to modify or change their movie, and this allows them to actually show you the raw film that they meant to make. But some of these changes are like, no, I'm just never going to be happy.
Disney Plus, Episode 4, Choose Your Own Adventure. You're in the cantina. Who would you like to shoot first? What would you like them to say?
That's what I was gonna say.
It's time for Question 4.
Why was THX 1138 allowed to escape?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Locked in.
I'm going to go KJ.
They went over budget. Can't go over budget. They went over, I think, I don't remember exactly, but it was something like they went over 5% of the initial estimate, which is not acceptable. And honestly, is Robert Duvall worth, like, let him go. What? Over budget.
Yeah, over budget. He's not worth it, guys.
Yeah. That's the story of Godfather Part 3 too. It went over. I was going to say they hit 6% over 14,000, and so they were over budget, so he had to go away.
Okay, well, this is pretty obvious that everyone's going to get the points. Tom is going to take down this episode by a half a point, 5.5. Patrick, strong finish here, 5 points. KJ as well with 4 points. That was a pretty tight match in the end there. So this goes back to some of the themes. We were talking about this totalitarian society, but at the same time, there's this theme of capitalism and consumerism. How does that play together? That's the part that I don't get. Like in some places they have everything, but then they're really nitpicking on these credits. So,
well, I mean, the idea of a totalitarian capitalism is something that's been kind of came up in the late 60s, right? This is what, like, somebody like Herbert Marcuse was analyzing capitalism, and he says it itself is totalitarian. Now he has this kind of argument that it goes back to fascism. That doesn't really make any sense. It's actually kind of crazy, but it's this kind of idea of like capitalism is everywhere and it's total, so it produces like really cheap versions of Marx. So you could buy Das Kapital for very cheap because of capitalistic processes. And so he would say, and this is kind of part of the student revolutions of the late 60s, they would say that it's this system that has become totalizing, and there is no space outside of it. And I think there's a lot of like anti-socialist stuff in this movie too, which is why I don't think it makes a lot of sense. But that's kind of my reading of the capitalism thing. It's this kind of like late Frankfurt school style totalizing aspect of capitalism.
but don't you think he's also anti-capitalism too? Like it seems he's anti every
Yeah,
theme
that's
of
what
the
I just
film.
said. Yeah. He's like it's total control. Marcuse is saying capitalism is total control, and I think in his kind of bumbling way, Lucas is saying the same thing, right? He's saying that it's everywhere, it's controlling everything. The incentives to like save money and not go over budget are everywhere, and there's sort of life is sort of rewired to serve that instead of the other way around. Now, regardless of what you think of that, that fair enough. But I think that's the kind of philosophical spirit Lucas is drawing from.
I'll never be able to say anything as eloquently as that.
That's why we have Tom here.
Yeah. That, and I'm just better looking than they are.
Perfect for an audio only.
But it's true, actually.
Tom kind of has got an OMM0000 thing going on right now.
Yeah. So if you want to know what I look like, look up Hans Memling's version of Christ. Yeah.
It's time for Movie Rant.
I actually did have a bonus question that was not needed in this episode, but I figured it'd be fun to bring this one up anyway, just to see what your thoughts are. While predating Star Wars, what sentence of dialogue references this galaxy far, far away?
I know this guy. I'm gonna lock this guy in.
Oh, Patrick's locked in.
What? I don't even get the question. What's the question again?
What references Star Wars, even though Star Wars didn't exist yet? You already won, Tom, so don't think too hard.
I literally don't know. I don't know at all.
I remember hearing it, but I don't remember what it was. I'll
I don't even
lock in
remember
on
hearing
this non-bonus question.
I'm gonna save Patrick to last because he seems pretty confident. So
I'll even
Tom.
give you trivia behind it. That's how.
Oh yeah,
confident I
let's
am.
do it. I want you to.
I have no idea.
Okay.
I'm gonna go. I have no idea. Is somebody named C-3PO?
No, good guess though. KJ, any thoughts?
Well, my actual answer, does somebody say I have a bad feeling about this? And then my fake one is McClunky.
Yeah, both of them were not present. Patrick, take it away.
So it was this guy. I wanted to look it up because I wanted to make sure I got the guy's name right. This guy Terrence McGovern, who is a friend of George's from Modesto, was one of the loopers, the audio loopers, doing like the background dialogue for characters. And I believe it's when the cops during the chase, maybe at the end. I can't remember exactly when it happens, but he says,
It is the chase. Yep.
I think I just ran over a Wookiee on the expressway," is what he says.
Yeah.
And it was a word he just like. Yeah, it was his friend's last name, Bill Wookiee, Wookey, and he just thought it was a funny word. And Terrence McGovern is also in American Graffiti. I think he plays one of the teachers, and then I believe he's the guy who says, "These aren't the droids we're looking for." I believe that's his voice as the stormtrooper. Yeah,
Absolutely correct. And I just figured I'd throw this one out there. Could this dystopian location be within the Star Wars universe?
wow.
Like underground in a planet.
There's a lot of planets out there.
There's
A lot in the galaxy.
A lot of systems. It would be. I think it would be a totalitarian government within the Empire, right? I don't think the Empire works this way.
No,
the First
it's
Order.
Outer Rim, Tom. I agree.
Yeah, this would be like a small little horror show. It's like, what's that walled off city in China, where it's like an independent city in China,
Yeah.
but it's like run by street gangs, and it's like the most densely populated city in the world. You could look it up. It's like it's amazing. There's like sunlight doesn't get to the bottom of the city because the buildings are so close, but it's
Hong
considered,
Kong?
I think.
Yeah, I don't think that's what it's referring to.
No, it's like the something walled city. I don't remember what it is, but
I'm
it's
gonna say
basically
it's the
run
Great
by,
Walled City.
Maybe.
Kowloon Walled City, Kowloon.
That
Does
sounds
it look
like
like a
it.
crap
It was
show?
an ungoverned, densely populated Chinese enclave within the boundaries of Kowloon City, Hong Kong, I guess.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
it. Yeah.
So KJ was somewhat right.
Yeah, I actually forgot my point because I
Well,
spent
if we're actually going to answer this question, was there any technology in the THX world that breaks the rules? Were there glasses? Were there was there anything in the THX worlds that break the rules of Star Wars, right? Obviously there's no force.
And
But-
also, I think that glasses rule has been broken recently.
Ah,
I believe
What is
okay.
the glasses rule?
that there were no glasses in Star
Nobody
Wars.
has glasses.
Oh, nobody was wearing glasses.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I think that's been broken.
Been broken.
I might be wrong.
Maz
I
gets
might be
close, right?
Maz gets close. Isn't the in Mandalorian the scientist guy who's with Werner Herzog who's like trying to take the blood?
Oh.
Doesn't he have glasses?
Oh.
I think he might have glasses.
Yeah.
Well, when did you watch it? Because when it aired,
Yeah, which version?
He does have glasses. He does have glasses. I've
Oh.
So
seen.
there you go. Yeah, no, I threw this out there just for fun, but really there's nothing that says this is Earth. There's nothing that I could see through this that gives us any indication that our society has evolved to this. This is the future. This is the past. Nothing that I could see really shows that, unless we're really talking about, certain technology. You could have pills in any world. That's
listen,
not. Yeah.
those monkey boys. Those monkey boys. I don't know what they are. They could be something. It's. I don't think they're monkeys. Right? They feel just off
They're-
enough from monkeys.
They're not. Yeah, they're not Earth monkeys.
No, they're not Earth monkeys. I'm
No,
glad we.
definitely
They're
not.
not the good old familiar Earth
I'm
monkeys.
so glad
that
I
we
got
all
you to
have
say
grown
that
love.
sentence.
So I can pop this bubble.
Mhm.
When was it Mendelssohn paint that painting? What was the guy's name?
Memling, he painted in
Memling,
the
right?
1480s.
Ohm's gonna
Yeah.
lead the way here.
Hans Memling. Mhm.
If Star Wars was long ago in a galaxy far, far away,
There you go.
the painting
gotcha.
wouldn't have. Yep.
Yeah, you can't steal that painting. Oh, you got
There
us.
you go.
Mhm.
It's on Earth, maybe.
Or it was some
Kind of.
painting that looked very similar
Very
to.
similar. That could be.
Yeah, I mean, stuff like the Empire is also really different from this government. Like, I'd much rather live in the Empire than in this place.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm
Like,
not
the
saying this
Empire-
is Empire. I agree that
Yeah,
it would
no,
be
no,
more of an
no.
outer rim colony. Don't forget, there's a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
of
just kind of
different
ranting.
societies. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm ranting. You're on movie rant. But it's like the Empire is sort of it's the difference between totalitarianism and authoritarianism. Right? Authoritarianism is just like, listen, we're in charge, and when we need to be in charge, we're going to be in charge. But Jabba the Hutt, you just like do your own thing until we need to be in charge again, right? And totalitarianism is just like everybody's going to do what we say all the time, and we're going to kind of measure your steps. And the Empire is much more the Empire is like really hands off. When you revisit those movies again, there's a lot of space for kind of doing the things you want to do. Like, there's a lot of crime lords who are doing really well under the Empire.
The only time the Empire really is punishing is if you're on a planet that has resources that they require.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's when they're then they assert their authority when they need something, right? Otherwise, they don't really care. They don't want to make everybody be just like they are. They don't need to do that.
Yeah.
It's a waste of money.
So who owns this right now? Is it George or is it Disney? Who owns? Is it still George? Because if George owns it, he could easily put the two sons on that last scene. Could even add the sound, right? Like that would.
Well, let's see. Distributed by Warner Brothers.
So I think he could add the dual sons
Yeah,
there.
go for it, George.
Or maybe there were
Yeah.
two sons, we just didn't have the right angle,
They're on the other side.
Yeah.
Someone should recut that ending with Binary Sunset playing in the background. Just another sun up.
And John Williams.
Yeah.
And
It would make sense that they lived underground, it's a desert
Yeah.
planet. So,
Too many suns.
it could be. And let's be honest, there are a lot of desert planets in Star Wars.
Yes.
We're finding new ones every day.
Yeah, I don't know. I had to say, like, I think a lot of us found this movie hard to remember at points. I had to rewatch it to remember the plot. Like, I had forgotten that THX like gets Sen in trouble. Like, he reports him, and that's why Sen is in prison. So I like even watching the movie, I couldn't figure out why Sen was in prison, who had caught him, just because I completely blanked out the scene 5 minutes after watching the scene.
Illegal
whole
programming,
movie-
Tom, switching
Yeah,
rooms.
maybe illegal programming,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's like it's a really it's really kind of hard to keep track of the things that are going on. I do like their at-home pornography. That seems to be
That's an odd scene, though, really, though, right?
Yeah.
It's just kind of random, too. Like, there's no
Yeah.
other context.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the 70s. They're now allowed to show nudity. So just like everybody shows nudity. That's why there's nudity in The Godfather. There's no reason for nudity to be in The Godfather. They just add it in because it's like 1973 and they're finally allowed to do this.
I mean, it also seems like something that George was toying with that he eventually perfected for the Star Wars Holiday Special.
There it is. This must be the same universe.
Yeah. Speaking of Wookiees.
That's one of the few things that he has not gone back to make
True.
any changes.
It's very true.
Did he make that? Is that his or was that
I think he had more to do with it than he says he did, but he did not write it. He did not direct it. I believe he gave them the general concept and general idea for it, and then says he just said, "All right, go ahead, you guys go do this," and then was mad when he saw what happened. But I would not be surprised if he had more to do with it than that.
Okay, George. So then the son Wookiee's gonna say this. No dialogue.
Yeah.
No, he's not gonna say anything. It's
Just make really squeaky, annoying sounds. Okay, we got it.
Some of the writers on that were like Bruce Valanche and like the guys who wrote like the Police Squad TV show and like Naked
Oh, okay.
Gun and yeah, it was a bunch of those
Wow.
guys.
Yeah, they like Bruce Valanche writes or used to write the award
Yeah,
shows, right?
yeah.
For like Whoopi Goldberg and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's weird
Yeah.
because that is. Yeah.
It's interesting.
Kind of went in a different direction on this one.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. We ended in Whoopi Goldberg and we started in THX and totalitarian government. But yeah, so that I don't know. I think this is an interesting movie too, because it does have like, when you think of like kind of dystopic films or dystopic isn't a word, dystopian movies, it's like you do have that either absence of government or too much government. And then within that, there's this sort of distinction between an absence of pleasure and an excess of pleasure. And this, I don't know where this movie comes down, because it's so interested in the problems of consumerism and encouraging consumerism, which you would think would be kind of like the Soma from Brave New World, where everybody's just on drugs and feeling pleasure all the time. And that's kind of going on here, but it just doesn't seem like anybody's having a good time. And when you read Brave New World, it's like there's a lot of sex and happiness in this movie, and in this book rather, until they until they come out of it. But I'm not quite sure. Is this like a deprivation of pleasure and kind of like a boot in the face thing, or is it like an excess of it?
I thought it was more of a null, right? So
No.
yeah, you don't desire pleasure, you don't desire anything, which isn't necessarily a pleasure, but it is. I mean, satisfying is not the right word. It's complacency. Like it's.
My word was sedation for a reason. Like he
Like,
felt
yeah.
he could not do his job if he didn't take enough sedatives. Like he cannot function.
Yeah, because he's like throwing up when he starts coming off of them. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. That it's you're not being like broken the way the main character is in 1984. You just stop having emotions, right? You stop feeling things. Yeah, it's like in the Republic, right? We're gonna throw out all the poets because they're going to inspire too much passion. And in this movie, it's like they're going to throw out the poet in each of us, right? You don't have to throw out a class of people. You could just remove it from each individual in order to create, this kind of ideal society. It's like nightmare Plato.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like my general feelings with this movie is every time I watch it, I'm like, well, that's probably, when you watch a movie and you're like, I will probably never watch that movie again. And then I trick myself into watching it again later on.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I appreciate it. It's a movie that I just wish I connected with more, because I know a lot of people like it. I just think I don't necessarily do well with slow movies. Like, just as a personal thing, it's just, it doesn't hold my attention that well. And I think this is in my brain's definition of a movie that I'm like, yeah, I wish I got more out of it, but I just never do. I think everyone's good in it. I think Donald Pleasance is good in it. I think, like, there's a lot of people who are like putting in really good performances, and it's fun seeing them at that point in their career. And it's obviously fun seeing the things that he being George takes throughout the rest of his career from this movie. Some of the iconography that he reuses again, seeing how he repurposes, the BART tunnels in San Francisco to like be other tunnels. Also, I like in the end credits when it's like, the production would like to thank these people, and it's like Caleb Deschanel and all these people, and then it just says BART Subway, like that's a name. And I thought, I was like reading it and I was like, wait, that's not a name, that's a thing. I know what that is. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting movie. I wish the monkeys weren't in it, because I truly think it's the thing in the movie that I'm like, I just can't get on board for that, even when I've like bought into the rest of it.
Fair. Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just, it takes you out of making it feel like, even though it does not feel like the real world necessarily, it feels like a realistic thing. And then those guys show up and you're like, oh, I don't know what's happening now. I don't know what is going on. But I think the last like 20 minutes, the escape and the chase are great. And I think it's just really fun, exciting, cool filmmaking that he, sometimes uses again. He loves a good chase. He loves a good chase, and if a movie ends with a chase or like, you know, an explosion or whatever, you're like, oh yeah, that's George. And I feel like this movie does that, and then it also ends on the, you know, the hopeful note that he does again, like we said in New Hope with Binary Sunset. Like that ending feels a lot like that, where you're like, I don't know what's going to happen next, but he's going off into this big new world that he doesn't know what's coming. So yeah, it's, you know, it's a movie, and I think it's a movie. I think that's the best thing I can.
It's a movie.
That's it. That
It's
could
a
have been the
movie.
summary.
I didn't even mean to say that, but it's a movie. And I think if you're interested, if you've listened this far and you have not seen the movie, I don't know what's wrong with you, and I apologize. But you should watch the movie just as a piece of, you know, film history to see where a lot of things spurred out of his career from.
And then followed up with more American Graffiti, right?
Abso-freaking-lutely.
I'd like to once again congratulate our winner of the week, Tom. I feel like I've been saying that a little too often lately, but congratulations, Tom.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're very happy.
everyone
for
is
me.
very happy for you.
My half point.
On another note, check out our website, talkingpicturestrivia.com, for more information about us and our episodes. You can find us wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as our YouTube channel. We are extremely grateful for any positive reviews, as those help others like you find us. If you like what you hear, remember to like and subscribe to our show. What was your favorite scene in THX 1138 and why? Let's continue the conversation on Twitter at Talking Studios. Have additional thoughts? Email us at talkingpicturestrivia@gmail.com or give us a call at 201-467-8679 for a chance to be featured on one of our future From the Listeners episodes. Thanks again, Patrick, for joining us today. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Patrick Kotner. I'm currently trying to get more followers than the canceled NBC show 1600 Pen. So anybody helps. You can also follow the show I produce, George Lucas Talk Show, at G Lucas Talk Show on Twitter. We're on a brief hiatus right now. Hopefully we'll be back soon, but all the old episodes are on YouTube. There's so many episodes, so many guests. I recommend just finding a guest that you like and watching that episode, and you'll probably be able to catch on pretty quick. There's Whoopi Goldberg, there's Jason Mantzoukas, there's Leah Thompson, Bobby Moynihan. Like, there's so many. Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar Binks, is a great one if you're looking for a first one. So many guests, so many episodes. Go check them out. They're fun.
Yeah, Kevin Smith too. That's a good one. Yeah, absolutely.
Kevin Smith's a good one. Yeah.
You can find me at Thomas Lehman 15 Twitter, right? That's my Twitter, I think. Yeah, Thomas Lehman 15. Yeah. Yeah. I'm also doing a B-side podcast on THX. So we're going to be doing different types of dystopian literature. So please tune into B-side. It should be coming out the same day. It should be out now. If you're listening to this, you could go download that and enjoy.
And you can find me on Twitter at KJ10001000.
I can also be found on Twitter at The Nicknamed. Join us next time when we discuss KJ's recommendation from 1985, Tampopo. Should be a fun one. Talk to you then. Ding, 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 ding.